we've been friends for a very long time. That we're also kind of different in some ways. Still remember the day you came out to me as detrans. You know, that's also why I said to other trans people I know, you need to take care of Alex now. You need to embrace him. You need to include him. Because that's what he needs now, and it's honestly what's most healthy for you too. I think it's to trans people's benefit that they have a good relations with people who decide they're not trans after all.
You grew up,
I grew up in a cult, to put it bluntly. Because I've had that upbringing, I also see I identify cults when I see it. I see it in the Trump, MAGA movement is very cultish. It's very hard for the members to break out of their programming. It's very hard to realize that, I'm about to be part of something that is extremely dangerous and destructive.
What I actually fear is that what they allowed Trump to do right now might open a door for something much worse in the future.
Yeah, after the Second World War, fascism never left us. It was always there all the time.
Yeah.
But it took on a different mask than it used to. And that's basically the point I realized, oh, holy shit, I almost became a fascist.
For me, a huge part of what is transhumanism for me is improving the quality of life for people for as long as possible. We don't want to just live longer. We also want to be healthy. Idea of uploading our consciousness into a machine or into a computer, live digitally. I also don't think it is metaphysically and neurologically feasible. No. On a fundamental metaphysical level, I think there are three main elements in the universe, and that is matter, energy, and consciousness.
I think I have a different view than you when it comes to the main energies of the world. And I think that's basically matter and energy. I don't think consciousness is a third one.
I can, with all honesty, say that I love you more than any person I have been romantically involved with throughout the years. So, did you like me serenading you?
I certainly didn't expect to be serenaded today, but...
Well, I'm always happy to serenade you, Paul.
Okay.
If you're all wondering who this handsome fella is, Paul is a rhetorician, a public debater in Norway, as well as an author of a record amount of articles in Norway's largest queer newspaper. But it also happens he's a very close friend of mine and a character in my book. A pretty major character in the third act, actually. So,
wow.
Hello, Paul. Really nice to have you.
Hello. So, how does this thing work?
How does this thing work? Where you speak to the microphone, the words come out, and I'll probably make some content. That's what I usually do.
Very straightforward.
Yeah, I like that approach, actually. So, do you have anything on your mind you would like to share? Think of it as a situation in a therapist office.
You... I was I want to start saying that we've been friends for a very long time. You're probably the longest friendship I ever had, I think, consistently. But that also makes me think about that we're also kind of different in some ways. If I were to describe it as a musical metaphor, I would say I think your soul is more alternative rock, punk rock, metal. While my soul is more disco, funk. I have a funky soul.
Well, you're a pretty funky person.
I am a very funky person. Yeah,
I'm a punky person, I guess.
You punk.
You punk. Okay, what makes you think that I have a soul that's rock and roll, punk rock, and metal?
I think it probably has much to do that that's the kind of music you have a tendency to listen to, I think. And that you also sometimes can be a dark, brooding person sometimes, like almost like Batman, just like more complaining.
It's over, Joker. I have the higher ground. No, wait. It's over, Joker. You're out of jokes. I win.
I got you there, didn't I? Good night. Oh, Batty boy. You can't do this to me, no. Our plan's only just begun, really. No, you see, I have just one more little joke up my sleeve. Where is it? Wait for it. Wait for it. It's a good one. It's a good one. I'm sorry, I'm holding it upside down. You're no Batman. You're a scat man.
Hey, you were right.
Didn't I tell you? Well, you know, our little games, they'll never be over. Now, let's play another game. I call it You Don't Laugh, You Die.
No, I don't think.
I'm joking,
like
but
I'm sweet and cute.
yeah, sweet and cute.
But I guess you're not completely wrong. There must be some punk rock soul in that got me attracted to anarchism in the first place.
Yeah,
so
which is very punk.
Yeah, it is. I mean, punk rock is a genre that literally got created as a means to express anarchist views.
Yeah.
So
it's also funny too. It was also kind of a reaction to disco as well.
Okay.
People got sick
that.
and tired of disco, so there's like, I think I might be completely wrong here, but like I think I saw like a program at NRK once, like the Norwegian broadcaster, and I think like they framed it like that punk was kind of a reaction to like the 70s or like the disco general vibe of things.
Okay, that makes sense. I never heard of that actually, but grunge in the early 90s was also a reaction to this very bright poppy music of the 80s.
Yeah.
So these people are kind of sick of that, and we want something
different,
raw, something that it's not candy. Pop and
sweet,
so sterile and sweet. Yeah.
Do you also think that because I remember the 90s vividly because I was a kid back then, and you have a tendency to remember those years quite. I will not say fondly, but you will remember them, and like a lot of music from the 90s was like you had like bands like Westlife, A1, you had like the NSYNCs, you had the like S Club 7 and a lot of poppy music. And I'm not sure, but I also remember that there was some music after the 90s also could probably fit that pattern, like like Green Day and all those like ska and all these like more, because I noticed like in periods after like very soft poppy music, you have sometimes like a harder, rockier version than that came before it. I'm not sure if it's that pattern, if it's like...
Yeah, I mean, I think especially late 90s, early 2000s, like pop punk was definitely, I think of it as a soul brother of the pop and R&B music from that era. That also had a child with rock and roll.
Yeah,
it's that sort of thing. But yeah, and I think, you know, both 90s and 80s were kind of bipolar in the sense that, you know, if you think about the 80s, on one hand, right, you had synth pop. On the other hand, you also had emergence of thrash metal as well as death metal towards late 80s.
And in the 90s, you also had like Nirvana. That became like big.
Soundgarden. Yeah, and that's a huge contrast, you know. I guess we don't really see that contrast today because radios don't really play rock
anymore. No.
Right, yeah. And you know, just last month I got into this band that's relatively new. They started in 2010, but I never actually listened to them before because I don't really like a lot of new rock and metal music. I think that like the last two bands of this sort that I genuinely enjoyed were System of a Down and Avenged Sevenfold. But then I got into Ghost, and I'm like, yo, that shit's the soul of the 70s and 80s rock and roll. Even some 60s elements in there from like psychedelic rock, shit like that. And mind blown, I'm sleeping in this band. You mentioned the 90s.
Yes.
And, you mentioned you remember 90s. Do you have nostalgia tied to that time period?
I'm not sure if I would call it nostalgia, to be honest, but because I wasn't really connected to the kids back then, because I was a weird kid. I was the autistic kid. I preferred to listen to Phil Collins and Disney music because I was a weirdo. I listened to the Beatles. I listened to very old music while the kids around me were listening to like this poppy, crazy froggy type of, or no, it wasn't Crazy Frog back then. That was more like the early 2000s. No, they were listening to I'm basically that kind of trashy music. While I listened to Phil Collins from the Tarzan movie.
Okay, yeah. Well, I too had a very different tastes compared to most kids my age in late 90s, early 2000s, because while they were into cartoons, I was into Tales from the Crypt. Watched on the telly, and the kind of poppy music they would listen to, I would listen to metal and rock already at that point, and played games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill. So I always felt like a very odd person in my environment.
You know how I got introduced to modern music. If it wasn't really modern when I got introduced to it, but because before that, the only music I've listened to was my father's cassettes of classical music, and because my father listened to a lot of classical music, Beethoven, Bach, and all that kind of stuff, and it was honestly the music I mostly grew up with, except for the children's song tapes that used to play in the car when we were driving around in the 90s in that old Volkswagen minivan, or not minivan, maybe like a mini bus, to be honest. And And my first introduction to what you would call modern music, or at least from the 1900s, was basically Beatles.
Wow.
Yeah, and the way I got introduced to that was basically the movie A Hard Day's Night, movie of the Beatles from like back then. So it was like my first repeat song ever was basically A Hard Day's Night of Beatles.
Wow.
And before that, I hadn't really been exposed to modern music at all. I'd just been listening to classical music. And even some accordion type of music like Ronald Sedelmark and all this kind of weird Swedish old people music.
Okay. For me, it was very different because my dad, he's really into heavy metal and punk rock. So I definitely got that element from him.
Yeah.
But no, I got into classical music in my early teens. Actually, I think my very first composition I got really into and fell in love with was Eine kleine Nachtmusik by Mozart.
Oh, really?
And that was a start of my very long journey with my love for classical music. And so we kind of, we're opposite in that way.
Yeah,
and, it's very obvious that we grew up in very, very different families, very different environments.
We grew up in very different environments.
At the same time, there's one thing that they shared in common because, I grew up in a Catholic country, in a small town where, the influences of the Catholic religion and culture were huge at school and everywhere. And you grew up, you can...
I grew up in a cult, to put it bluntly. It's like, if I were to compare it to another one that people are maybe familiar with, I would probably compare my... upbringing pretty close to, not quite the same, but close enough to like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, but not being any of that. They were, you can like the global name they are known under now is like Brunstad Christian Church. But in Norway they're mostly known as Smith's Friends, because
do they actually have any friends named Smith?
Well, I mean, like most of the leaders of that community are usually Smiths. A lot of them, at least. Like the founder of the, how shall I say, religion, and now the current leader, I think, is both Smiths. So it's like a family type of religion, and the members are extremely loyal to the big cojones on top, and it's very hard to make someone who's in there to realize their whole viewpoint is, in my humble opinion, wrong, and that they're in fact in a cult.
I mean, that's a very common and fundamental element of cult, right? Where they try to gaslight the members.
I mean,
in this way.
And it's very easy to do that when basically the members' almost entire life is within that cult. It's basically your family is there, your community is there, and basically like it becomes like a huge part of your identity, and it's very hard to break out of it. And to put it bluntly, because I've had that upbringing, I also see like I identify cults when I see it, both healthy and unhealthy, because I think there might be such a thing as a healthy cult, but then it's more like a cult, not a cult, Mm-hmm. So I also see it in political movements sometimes. I see it in the Trump, MAGA movement is very cultish. It's very hard for the members to break out of their programming. It's very hard to realize that, I'm about to be part of something that is extremely dangerous and destructive, and it's gonna fuck off my life if I don't stop. Because a lot of the members somehow think that Trump is on their side and he will help them. But the truth is, like, the only person Trump cares for is Trump himself.
I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from two people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
No, absolutely. I actually did a video on that and why we're actually seeing a wave of people leaving MAGA right now, and there's a growing movement of that, which I think is very positive. And there's also a lot of people leaving the left, and I think this will actually perhaps allow us to meet in the middle. And I think this is still really the best way to end the culture war, that people will actually.
Personally, I am not the middleman type of person, but you already know this. I think that the idea of the center is an illusion, and it basically make us lazy thinkers. I think because the best ideas are not always in the middle. Sometimes they are even all the way out in the fringes, sometimes even. And I think we should try to evaluate ideas on their own merits instead of where their positions in the political landscape. And we need to discuss the destructiveness of ideas and not if it's... and I think it's like a mistake to think about, we should be gathered, we should all think the same thing. No, that's not really it. We should learn to accept that people have different ideas. But we also should be able to say, that idea is kind of fucked up.
I'm on board, and I have a lot of ideas that are on the fringes, right? Like my ideal view of the world as an anarcho-transhumanist place is, of course, very, very different from the status quo.
Of course it is.
But I think I just want to ask you, what do you mean when you talk about the middle or the center?
It's often like a waiting position. It's like basically the waiting room of politics, I feel.
Okay, I think this is exactly how a lot of people define it. Also, a term I have heard quite a lot is fence sitters. But actually, that's just one type of centrist. Then you have the types of centrists who just have a combination of views that are left and right. A lot of the time, moderate left and right, but sometimes far left, far right. It's possible.
The thing is, if you look at this from a historical perspective, a lot of fence sitters has been. Things get tough. They leave their centric liberal positions for something much darker, and. I think a phrase that I've heard among a lot of anti-fascists I know is like the center fold loyally to the right. But if you look at, for example, the first big rise of fascism in the world, you see that a mistake that a lot of conservatives did was to think that they could control the fascists by, letting them in a controlled manner. Like Hindenburg did that, and you saw how that went. Like we can control him, but short time after, most of the conservatives of the time was just like completely cleansed out of the whole political system. And I'm not even sure if Hindenburg survived all of this. I'm not completely sure, but it basically, the center and the left basically met the same fate as the conservatives did, because they were competition. And you also see the conservatives of our time in America has also thought, well, if we let Trump in, we can control it. But what you see is actually like the old guard of the Republican Party is getting switched out by cronies.
Oh yeah.
And they
100%.
And if this go much further, and I am afraid it will, they also going to be cleansed out, just like anyone else.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I definitely think that the Conservative Party not we, but the US has had 20 years ago.
It's completely different.
It's logical. Yeah, it's a very different beast. But actually, it's not necessarily Trump. I fear because
It started before.
Trump is a pawn in it, and also a lot of people say things like Trump is going to put gays in concentration camps and stuff like that, and I think that's hyperbole of sort. What I actually fear is that what they allowed Trump to do right now might open a door for something much worse in the future.
Yeah.
And so when you say that the middle is not the best place, I think right now we need people who are or were MAGA to move towards the middle.
It's definitely better.
Minimize
it's
that.
definitely better that they move to the center, but right now we need more, how shall I say, clear resistance towards what's going on. And the problem with the center, they're very passive, while the left is more active when it comes to these things. And if there's something America needs, it's more leftist. And by that, I mean like the center in America is basically, or even what Democrats in even are more like the right wing of Norway, to be honest. Like most of American politics is very, very to the right, like compared to, for example, a lot of political environments in Europe.
So yeah, first and foremost, I agree that a lot of the time Americans on the right call everything that is not their ideology communism.
Yeah,
it's all communism.
It's very immature when you think about it.
Yeah, but I also see that among a lot of leftists where everything is fascism, and I think there's an issue with that because I've been called fascist, and if you call everyone who does not agree with your ideology fascist, it actually takes away from the actual dangers of fascism that is forming. And I see this growth of emergence of fascism, but I fear that a lot of people don't take it seriously because it's a sort of a boy who cried wolf story because they're thinking like, okay, they just call everyone fascist, so these people, they're not really fascist if the left is calling them that.
Can I come with a very controversial claim?
Sure.
After the Second World War, fascism never left us. It was always there all the time.
Yeah,
but it took on a different mask than it used to. And that mask is populism. And if you look at Europe, a lot of those who started as populist movements in Europe, where did they end up? They ended up with fascism, or very close to fascism. And you see also those parties also was founded by like children or people who was close connected to fascist movement back then. So for me, fascism never left us. It just continued and just like got better at hiding instead of like. So they just found another way to make themselves more palatable. But when you see they get in power, they cement their power. For example, like Hungary is like a very clear example of it. Even Italy. And if you see what happened in Hungary, like when Orban took over, he started as like a typical populist politicians, and slowly but surely he started switching out people in the like the state, from the judges and everything, to be in his favor. And you also saw the same thing happen in Poland as well. They tried to switch out a lot of people to basically stack it in their favor. And you also see the same thing in America is happening, and and you also see it in Italy. That they started as like a populist movement, and most of them were also connected to the fascist movement before. And if you also read a little bit about like the history of fascism from like the American Civil War and like until now, you see there's like a continuation, and you see all those people who was connected to fascism also is connected to populism. So you see as a continuation. So it's basically like putting on a fake mask, but you also see like they follow the same script basically. Find an out group, demonize them, use them as like a pull lever. I think the English word for it, to like get into power, and then after they have like used that group as like a lever, they start going after other people.
My thoughts. I think after World War II, what we have seen happening with fascism and communism is kind of the polar opposite, where communism largely remained the same. It was very much in your face throughout the rest of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Right. And sure. I mean, it looks a little bit different in China right now because it has actually a market economy, but you know, for the most part, historically speaking, communism remained largely the same beast it always was. Whereas, like you said, fascists they literally learned how to mask, like using autistic terms. And you know, it's really interesting to me because if you see the common elements of fascism, such as ultra nationalism, pointing out to an enemy, right? Cult of personality. We're seeing all of that in America right now, and also in the far left of Europe. And one element that is really, really missing is the military aspect of the presentation of fascists. And I think that's the element that really mastered to hide, right? Because, you know, if you have this strong symbolism that is fascists right in your face and military uniforms, stuff like that, people were going to recognize it much more easily.
Yes, but the
without
thing
it, you know, they present themselves in a very, very
But what you see now is more like they hide their faces. They go with ski masks or anything else. And
Antifa does that too.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you see like because if you look at like the old version of fascism, it was basically nice uniforms and stuff like that, but that also changed. Like the aesthetics of fascism changed, and it's become more like almost like black metal-ish in many ways, or like looking like someone who's done a lot of amphetamine, a lot of them. And I also have another very controversial opinion. I think a lot of things that we like call communism today, when I look back at history, I'm starting to think like, sure, they call themselves communists, but a lot of them kind of acted like fascists, to be honest. And for example, if you look like Stalin, for example, a lot of stuff that smell of fascism, and also because this is very funny, because there's often something who calls himself the middle way or traditionalist, which basically try to merge communism and fascism. So it's like brown, red, then just brown and red. So you see, for example, like I would, for example, claim that people like in Norway we have something called Steigan, for example, and you see like you meet a lot of old communists who have basically adopted a bunch of fascist ideas.
But I think it's because, you know, tankies and fascists, they have a lot in common.
They do.
They're soulmates.
They are.
They are.
I mean, tankies are just like another form of fashion, just like a little dash of red.
I think a good way to describe tankies and fascists are sort of like siblings who hate each other, but are actually very similar. Because they have the same traits they acquired from their parents. But they fight, they hate each other, but
they're basically
actually,
the same.
Sometimes you can go from something that is seemingly completely not related and move to fascism. And I think perfect example of that is in Mussolini's Italy, where actually some anarchists there were converted to fascism and joined Mussolini's cause. And, it just seems like such a jump. It's like if you see someone who sits in the chair, drinks beer and watches foodie on the telly every single day, and is like into cars, and suddenly the next day they get into makeup and ballet.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing, but it's a fascinating phenomenon. And another thing I wanted to say regarding what you said, the similarities between fascism and commies or Stalinists.
Stalinism is definitely the right term.
I should say
it's a very big difference
because the attempt at an anarchist society that's been done in 1930s was actually ruined by both fascists and communists or Stalinists.
It's very. I think the difference between Stalinism and like Marxist communism, like Karl Marx, is very different, and it's very different. And I think if you look at like the leftist I like today and the leftist I just like, oh, these people are fucking fucked in the head. I notice like a pattern of the difference between them, and basically the difference between communists who turn into fascist and not has like there's a huge difference between them, and I think that element that separates them is anti-fascism, because not every communist was anti-fascist, but you see that like the healthier parts of the left today has like a anti-fascist ideology also in there.
How appealing do you find communism on a scale from 1 to 10?
It's very hard for me to put numbers on things, but
okay.
I don't very much like communism either, to be honest. But it's slightly more, or hugely more. I can tolerate it much more than I can tolerate fascism. But because while people die under communism, it's usually under mismanagement more than the willful want to actually exterminate people based on race or sexual identity. So when, for example, Mao, he had like this cultural revolution that killed a lot of people, like huge numbers, like
more than Hitler's Stalin combined.
Huge. And
that was massacre.
Yeah, it was not
horror. It was absolute horror.
It was horrible, but like most of the deaths was basically to incompetence more than anything else.
Yeah, but that doesn't take away from...
No, of course not. But I'm saying it was incompetence. And like, for example, a lot of the reasons a lot of Chinese people starved at the time was basically because China needed money. So they basically sold all their food overseas, which made a lot of the Chinese suffer. Because they basically said like, we need to build this project that we want, and to do that we actually have to get money. So basically, not only was there like corn shortage, I think, but they also like sold food out, and this was called, of course, also the cleansing of like certain social classes that didn't really fit into like the communist worldview as well. But there was like a mix of incompetence and ideology, which is fucked up in itself. But people, communism doesn't really kill people based on race, but more on basically what they will think is an hindrance to their project more than anything else.
Well, yes, there's a lot of focus on censorship and like an actual attack on freedom of speech. And in Poland, where I grew up, I was born not long after the fall of communism and the Berlin Wall, and it was sort of a changing society that really opened up to the Western influences. But my parents, I grew up in a very, very different society. of course, and there was just so much freedom, so much attack and freedom of speech, so much implementation of censorship. People were sent to prison, beaten up. My grandpa was actually very, very involved in the fight against the Soviet Union. And I think a lot of people think that the enemies of the Soviet Union were it's the right wing, right? Because it's sort of a logical implication for some people I have met, where it's like really capitalism versus communism. It's not. It's not. Those people who fought against the influence of the Soviet Union in Poland, those were worker unions. Yeah. Those were a lot of people with leftist views, or at least regarding economy. Kind of like social values. Poland was pretty conservative around that time. Yeah. So, Poland is still a very conservative country. Yeah, but economically, those were people leaning left who contributed most against this fight against
one of their biggest leaders was like Lech Walesa, and he was also like a big union.
Yeah, but he's a fuckhead.
He's a fuckhead. Yeah, I agree that. I know he was fuckhead. It's like he's basically one of the example of
he fucked those workers over basically, and once he got his position.
Yeah, he fucked up. Yeah. I know. It's like. And it's like one of the typical examples of if someone living long enough to become the villain, basically. And also this makes me think about another thing as I think is very interesting is that I think if you fight monsters, it's a very likelihood you might become a monster yourself.
That reminds me of a quote. Nietzsche.
The abyss thing?
Stare long enough into the abyss, and the abyss will stare back at you.
Yeah. Because like if you look at bombs in Gaza, they don't really make a difference between like Hamas, gays, civilians, or anyone else. They basically level that whole entire town. There's just ruins left, and just cleaning it up. I heard someone say it will take like 60 years. It's like completely ruined, and you see people keep supporting that no matter what they do. And it's really, I think it's like that kind of like intense hate towards the population, even if it stems from like this feeling of survival, which many like try to like justify it with. It makes me worried about humanity.
No, same. It also worries me that what we're seeing in Gaza right now is going to create a generation of people filled with so much hate.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen?
They're not going to be happy.
People? No. We're going to see an emergence of probably the largest terrorist organizations in history of mankind. When this is over, there's just no. I can't see anything else for myself. Honestly.
It's like people don't understand. You can't. If you want less terrorists, the last thing you should do is like bomb them, kill their parents, kill their dog or whatever. It's like if you want to end terrorism, you actually have to stop creating new generation of traumatized kids. On the 7th of October, like 1,200, 700 people died.
Those are still lives of people that were lost.
Yeah, but do you know how much more Palestine lives got lost?
Of course. But I don't think it's
we're talking
about
like
numbers. It's people's lives. It's
but
qualitative thing, not a quantitative.
But here's the thing. Like, over 60,000 Palestinians has been killed. 20,000 of them kids. And still, people have the audacity to say that because of what happened on the 7th of October, that is justifiable.
No, that's a fucked up thing to say.
It's a very fucked up thing because I understand the need to attack Hamas, and I can understand that bit. I can understand it. But the problem is like Israel's reaction went way too far.
Sure. At the same time, I could also say the same about the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, because it's driven by anti-Semitism rather than the actual hate of the state of the Israel, which I think is completely also understandable. But a lot of them, let's be honest, they just want to kill Jews.
Let's face it, most Jews living in Israel are Europeans. They've been living in Europeans for the longest time. Their families and families have lived in Europe forever. That's where they're from. That's honestly where they belong, I think. And I understand why the State of Israel was founded, because of all that happened during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But also I have to ask, can you really justify to commit another injustice to correct another injustice?
No,
you can't.
Same. I agree.
So I consider what happened in Palestine as like one of the hugest injustices of our time. I want Jews to be safe. I want them to have good lives. But then I also have to ask, but to what cost? Are we really there that we can say we can justify the sacrifice of other people's well-being, states?
Yeah, at the same time, you have to think of it this way. A lot of kids who are born in Israel, they didn't choose to occupy the land. They were just born to the parents who lived there, right? And just not that long ago, when the hostages that Hamas released, two of these guys were huge fans of this band, Avenged Sevenfold, which I also mentioned earlier in this video. And the vocalist of that band did a video in which he congratulated them on coming back home and wished them all the best, and they were like huge fans of the band, so they loved that. And then you had a lot of people from the Free Palestine crowd who said he should never have done that.
I honestly think that most Jews that live in Israel could probably move to the place in Europe their parents or grandparents lived, to be honest. I think they would mostly be welcomed. But they have created this idea of that they're not. But honestly, I don't want to see Norwegians, Jews leave for Israel, because I want them here. I appreciate them.
No, of course, yeah,
and,
of course.
And I think, like, in my opinion, the State of Israel is basically a sign of total failure of making sure that Jews has it good in Europe. That people move to Israel is a failure on our part.
I can agree on that.
Because the only reason the State of Israel exists is because of our failure, both before, during, and after the war. And to put it bluntly, like, because I have met a lot of people who are traumatized in my time, especially amongst like ex-religion type of folks. A lot of those are extremely traumatized. Also among queer people that are also extremely traumatized. And what I will say is that traumatized people don't always act in a way that looks good. You know what I mean? Because I met traumatized people who are, to put it bluntly, fucking assholes. And they put a lot of
trauma can do that.
Yeah, like a lot of traumatized people I met is like this type of stuff they do to other people sometimes is not good. And I know from my own meeting with activists that there are some narcissists in there. There are some very damaged people among traumatized people. And think about like a whole group of people who went through the Holocaust. That is traumatizing. It's not a trauma that just leaves when the next child is born after the war. That is a generational trauma that persists. And when you are traumatized, especially when you went through the horrors like the Holocaust, which like the single worst event in modern human history. Full stop. When people experience something like that, they become afraid. And they get the idea, I don't want anyone to hurt me ever again.
Yeah.
And that fear and that fervor might make people act in a way that is destructive.
No, 100%.
And I think a lot of that is what has happened in Israel.
Yeah, I see a lot of it also among trans and detrans people. We both, if there's, I think there's there's way more things we have in common than people realize. Yep. But one thing we have in common that is very central is we both, a lot of the time, have been through trauma. Of some sorts, and we have developed this protective mechanism. And so trans people, they fear they will lose their access to treatment. And they don't want the younger generations to go through like the same strictly, gatekeeping type of system. And then you have us, detransitioners, who don't want more people to go through the medical trauma of unnecessary transition when it's not needed. And, I think both are understandable. I can see both sides. But because we both get very protective over that due to that trauma, we in reality are assholes to each other.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Instead of, actually supporting each other in that trauma. And that is also the goal with the book. I'm
you want to
writing.
Know something interesting, by the way, about regarding that topic?
Sure.
I said, because I still remember the day you came out to me as detrans.
Right.
And I hope I had like an okay reaction.
That scene is actually in my book.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I wasn't really... I was like, oh, this is surprising, I thought, but, this is his life. I should be supportive. And I thought, like, what's the best thing I can do now? It's probably to treat him in a good way, because that's the humane thing to do.
Well, thank you for being humanitarian towards me.
Yeah, and also I thought I also knew that if I treated you shit in that moment, you probably just would get radicalized from it. It could, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's also why I said to other trans people I know, you need to take care of Alex now. You need to embrace him. You need to include him. Because that's what he needs now. And it's honestly what's most healthy for you too. Okay, that you actually welcome Alex, take care of him. Because I think it's to trans people's benefit that they have a good relations with people who decide they're not trans after all. Because if you don't do that, it's, first of all, it's very mean. It's not an okay thing to do. And you're gonna, and if you also don't embrace them, you're also gonna create enemies you don't need to have.
No, absolutely. I think this plays a very central role in why some detransitioners get radicalized. Because, think about it. You've been absolutely rejected, right? And you tried to have a conversation. You wanted people to pay attention to some, trauma, injustice, I would even say, that happens, and you get laughed off, called names. A lot of these people lose their community, and it's no wonder they develop really antagonistic relationship towards trans community at that point, because some trans people can be assholes.
Anyone can be an asshole.
No, absolutely. I'm not saying they exclusively they're an asshole. Nobody else. Nobody else. I mean, like,
you got to remember that. We got to remember that trans people are human beings. and
Humans are
you
flawed.
can have all kinds of people. Because I have met trans people I really like and enjoyed being around, and I also met like trans people. Oh, I fucking hate this person, but not because they're trans, just because they're a shit person. So I think like a danger that we see sometimes is like, because I have met one person within this community who are an asshole, because they exist everywhere, including the autistic community as well. I met a lot of assholes in that, but it's very important that you check yourself in those moments and realize that you met just one person who are an asshole and happens to be this or that, but you can't judge an entire group based on that.
For sure. Another thing I've noticed is because on average, I've noticed that communism, it's more common for trans people to embrace communism than non-trans people, right? And I think it also is a result of that, where they will completely rejected by the right and sort of created their own little bubble that can lean into that. So there's also an element of radicalization. And I think with trans and detrans people, we're seeing that being rejected creates radicalization.
For example, one of the biggest radicalizer of trans people in Norway, do you know who I think that is?
No.
Rikshospitalet.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a logical.
Because like here's the thing. I don't think most trans people want to like remove complete control of like, because you obviously need like a good conversation. But the problem with Rikshospitalet is like they go into the conversation assuming you're not trans, and they often try to talk people out of it instead of just like having that normal conversation to understand and like have like this mapping of the whole thing.
Actually get to know the patient as an individual.
Exactly.
Help them figure out what's the best path for them, And I think, in some cases it is transition. In some cases, I think people need something else. They actually need to explore gender expression.
Yeah.
Because, like in my case, when I believed I was trans, it was simply because I was uncomfortable with some elements of masculinity, and young people. I don't mean to say it in a way that sounds mean, but we're kind of stupid. we think stupid stuff and we do stupid stuff. And for me, it was this assumption: well, I'm the binary other.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but you know what I think though? I think though, we can't have a society where mistakes never are being made, because that's impossible.
No, I mean that's an authoritarian overreach.
Exactly.
It's sort of like, what else are we gonna do? Take away alcohol, drugs, cigarettes,
so the thing
unhealthy
is like,
food, so people can only eat salad and are forced to do that.
Exactly. So that's also why I think that while some few detransitioners, because let's face it, compared to people who are happy with the treatment, the percentage is very low.
How low do you think it is?
I only know it's like under 10% somewhere, very far down.
So the current estimates are something between 5 and 13, but a lot of the time it also includes people who detransition because they had a sort of internal shift in understanding of their gender, but it also may include people who stop hormones for various reasons, including like, health, reproduction, social stigmas, stuff like that. And I think we shouldn't be lumping these two
we shouldn't
together,
like, because
it negatively affects most studies.
I agree. It is very important to separate up those numbers, because then you can see basically, because there's a difference between deciding, I wasn't a woman after all, I wasn't a dude after all, and this treatment makes havoc on my body. This treatment is such of poor quality, I rather not do it. There's a huge difference between those two. But the thing is, like, there's like 5% is like, that basically means 95% are happy. And I think like what worries me is like people take like this 5%, which kind of small compared to like the general trans people, and based on that 5%, they're going to decide, no, those 95 others are not going to get their treatment they want. And I think that's the problem, because people go to such extreme measures sometimes.
I think people have a problem finding balance. It's like we see this one thing doesn't work, let's go to the other extreme. It's like, okay, imagine there's a rock holding a plank, right? And instead of like holding it balanced, we just go from one end to the other.
Exactly.
But, you know, at the same time, I think the other extreme of that is, speaking from my experience, a lot of the time we get this impression that our experience doesn't matter because we're the minority there. And, well, we're a minority within a minority.
But I think like, this is going to sound a bit brutal, but I think when it comes to politics, I think the general rule should be that politics should be made for those who, the more people who benefits from a politic, the better. So in my like very like pragmatic,
it's a very, very democratic mindset. Yeah. I have a very the opposite mindset in sense that I don't think the majority should impose the rule on an individual. But we can get back to that later.
Yeah, but anyways, it's like I think that we need to treat people well, and we should give people the opportunity to live the lives they want to live, even though if we don't understand it. And I think that's the case as seen with a lot of transphobic people, I mean, is that they don't realize that these people they're not part of some crazy ideology. They just want to live their lives and have a good life.
For the most part, yeah.
I mean,
exactly. I think every community has some predators, and you also have some predators within trans community. You have Jessica Yaniv.
I heard about that
horrible person, right? But like they're not a representative, and I think a lot of people assume that this type of person represents the whole community.
But people has a tendency to take they're predators among gay people, so that must mean they're all bad. It's basically the problem, because they put like much more collective accountability among minorities than they have a tendency to do among like the majority of people.
Sure.
And that's basically because
purely statistically speaking, the amount of predators or PDF files among both gay and straight individuals, the percentage is more or less the same.
Exactly.
But you have way more straight people in the world than gay people, right? So statistically, there are going to be more straight predators.
Of course there are. It's a numbers game, basically. So, but my experience...
Like
let me so to get to my thought, I was like, so my experience, like from at least the Norwegian community, if there are predators and people know they're predators, it's not something they put under the carpet. It's something they take up very vocally and make sure that person don't get access to underage people.
So something I wanted to ask you, and it's also something my viewers will appreciate, because we've known each other now for
long time,
11 years. And when you've met me, I was still living as a trans woman, or I was actually, it was the late stage of my trans woman days.
Just like late stage capitalism.
Going towards detransition, and when I first detransitioned, you didn't know I was actually detransitioning.
No.
You thought I was transitioning.
Yeah.
But what was your impression of me when I was still living as a trans woman? Did you think I was natural in that role, or did you get like impression that it wasn't really me?
I don't know really. I'm not really sure if I have a straight answer for that, considering I'm gay, but joke. But anyways, I didn't really think about it, but I maybe have a glance thought that you were like a kind of like a masculine girl or something that like had boyish interest, because I had met tomboys in my life before, so it was like completely foreign to me. So yeah, I think I just like thought you were a tomboy or something.
Okay. Well,
so I didn't notice it like that. And you also gave me a story to filter through my thoughts when you said you were,
intersex.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I told that a lot of people. Actually, it was actually sort of a method to avoid shame of making that decision, because and it's not just like I told it as a lie. I genuinely believed it inside, because my mind didn't want to accept that I'm responsible for what happened to my body, and I really sort of forced myself to believe that I was just born like that.
I also noticed
it's a protective.
I also noticed when you told me this, you seemed really nervous. You were like
back then.
You seemed afraid, to be honest.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I think you have thought this thing to be much scarier than it actually was. And of course, it would be naturally be afraid, because you didn't only get good reactions to this. But you know me, I like to.
No, because you're very open-minded.
Yeah, and I think a fear you had, which I kind of noticed, you were afraid that I would be angry at you for quote unquote lying.
I was.
The way I saw it was like, okay, they had their reasons to hide the thing they were hiding, and I had experience from that before, that people are not completely always open about everything because they want to protect themselves, they feel unsafe. And if you were feeling unsafe about that, part of me was thinking, oh shit, have I failed as a friend now? Because you were too afraid to just say it to me?
So largely not, because it's not just you. You were also the first person I told, but I remember an instance in 2017. It was shortly after we moved to Oslo, and the school year at the university started. It was late August, early September 2017. You've posted on your Facebook page that detransitioners should just shut up. Or
did I?
Something like that. Yeah, they just should stay quiet. And well, you didn't know the truth about me, but honestly,
that probably hit you pretty hard.
Yeah, it did. And we lived together at that moment. And
yeah, I'm sorry about that.
When I saw that post, and later, I got home from the uni. You got home, and we were making a dinner together. It's something we used to do quite a lot there in that kitchen. We had there, and I just felt really, really awkward that day.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, that's okay.
I mean, like, because as you probably...
Has your perspective on that changed, or?
Yeah, of course it has. Like, because let's face it, this was at the start of the university, right?
Yeah.
This was before my brain got fixed through education. Because, like, a context, which is probably very relevant to the listeners, is like, when me and Alex first met, I was basically just living in a communal apartment, being on welfare, basically. And while you could say I was intelligent, I didn't really my brain wasn't really mature. It wasn't processed. It hadn't gotten the intellectual system to actually produce it properly. So I was basically a very arrogant, uneducated person. And I think I was also very bitter of the world as well. That I didn't have the outlet to basically let my full potential blossom. And I felt like angry at everything, basically. And I think that might have gone out on a lot of people back then, because I had like this whole period of time I was like super edgy and like gore and all kinds of stupid shit.
I mean, I remember those times. I mean, I was too. I still remember.
We were both kind of messed up at
and
that time.
I mean, I remember the days when we were hanging out at 4chan.
Oh my god!
Actually, we've sort of witnessed the development of the new right. Right in front of us.
We
and
did.
We actually had
interactions
like friends. From that.
I
environment.
I
Even
remember,
been on the podcast.
Yeah, we were on the podcast, and
that was long before I was making videos on YouTube.
And of course, a very important history lesson here is that back then they just called themselves anti-SJW and
SJW.
Yeah, and they transformed into what you call alt-right, and those same people also transformed into like MAGA. And
I mean it originated from online trolling.
Yes, exactly.
Michael Malice wrote a book on this topic.
But anyways, important before you. Sorry,
sure.
I wasn't quite done. So because I had like met parts of the autistic community that I wasn't ready for it, to be honest. I wasn't mature enough, and I didn't have this healthy enough self-image to take what they said to me in a healthy way. And it basically drove me towards like the anti-SJW environment for a while. And I thought, these are just normal people who are sick of crazy leftists, because that's the mindset I was in back then. Mm-hmm. I'm not anymore, obviously. and what made me realize what kind of shit I had stepped my foot into, because it was shit. It was like a turd in human form, all of this. And I had been on one of those, you remember those live casts that they used to have, then I added some of them as friends on Facebook, which was a huge mistake, because that's when I learned one of them was a self-proclaimed fascist. And then at that moment I was like, oh shit, what the fuck have I stepped into? Yeah, like shit. Where am I? What way am I on the way? And that's basically the point I realized. Oh, holy shit! I almost became a fascist. Yeah, that's a big holy shit moment. And when I realized he was a self-proclaimed fascist, I was like, but these people who seemed cool, normal-ish. I mean, ish, because none of them were healthy in their mind. None of them. If they're okay with people like that, what else are they okay with? And that's when I started digging and looking more into this and evaluating it more. And I had like the hugest holy shit moment of my life. Holy shit, what have I entangled? What have I got myself into? And that's when I slowly but surely just like, I'm going to just walk backwards and get a fuck away from this. And that's when I started becoming more and more leftist. And
and you moved
quite a lot. Yes,
quite a lot. Yeah,
I had like an awakening, I would say. I got woke. I think when it comes to my how shall I say, my opposition towards American capitalism has been going on for a while, since I know people in America that live shitty lives because of it. But I think something that really pushed me over the edge and made me realize how bad this could become is when I started playing Cyberpunk 2077 and dabbled into that universe.
I still haven't.
You should. You will love it.
The thing is, it's first person, and first-person games give me really bad motion sickness. But I wish they made it in third person for people like me.
Believe me, the game wouldn't be the same if it was, because it really plays well.
Yeah, but it still would let me experience it to some level, because as of right now, I can't experience it at all. It's a horrible feeling. It's not just nausea. It's sort of like, you know, the feeling of falling in your sleep.
Wow.
Like when you're try to fall asleep and you have this shock in your body. Like this is okay. So like when my character is moving forward in a game, my mind sometimes thinks I'm moving forward, and I have this sudden and it gives you this weird shock.
But what you can do instead, you could probably read source material or watch the anime instead.
Yeah, no, that is something I definitely could.
Because it's a very.
I don't really watch anime, but
It's a good one. I promise. Edge Runners is very good. But here's the thing: there's something about the universe which is really interesting. It's like, sure, you have states, but states work more like corporations, and corporations control more of people's lives than ever. Mm-hmm. But it's also like a very futuristic type of universe where people could get cybernetic enhancements, everything from better optical nerves and eyes to gorilla arms to make you strong, to make legs to make you jump higher. People are basically switching most of their bodies, or a lot of them, with like cybernetic enhancements. But it's very interesting because in that world, corporations has basically having armies as the size of modern day countries. Yeah. And they become really powerful. And if you look at our own world, it seems stuff might be going in that direction, because look at...
I mean, I got that worry already a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Corporations are
too big,
becoming more. So some corporations are literally more powerful than many countries.
Yes, and that's dangerous.
Let's go back a little bit, because you talked about technological.
You like technology.
Oh yeah. I've talked quite a lot about on this topic on this channel. That always makes me hard.
Well, cybernetic enhancements are definitely hard.
Sure.
Yeah,
they are. So
they are hard. They're metal and hard. Yeah.
Soft metal enhancement implants that make you very, very soft, jelly-like.
Oh, you mean you basically became like a slime?
Yeah.
But anyways, like because I also find like the topic of transhumanism also very interesting, and I am consider myself a transhumanist. I think probably not as much as other people.
We agree on that.
Yeah. Probably not as hard as many else, because some people just want to be uploaded to a machine and that's that. I actually like having a physical, biological body because I like my body.
Yeah. So, transhumanism has quite many branches, and I myself, I'm not only not in big support of the idea of uploading our consciousness into a machine or into a computer, live digitally. I also don't think it is metaphysically and neurologically feasible.
No, I don't think so either.
Based on everything I know, the compatibility between wetware, that is our brain, and the
hardware
and the phenomenological aspects of our consciousness, they both have to be actually compatible with hardware in order to achieve that. And there is literally no evidence that could be feasible. And you know what I mean by feasible, because there are things that are impossible here in this moment based on limitations of technology or knowledge, but feasibility goes into the very fundamentals of whether something can be done, such as human immortality. I don't think we can achieve immortality,
no, I don't think so either.
But I think it's very likely that in near future, average age would go up to 100.
Yeah, and I think it's much more realistic to think that humans will change and switch out body parts to live longer, and also use like genetical modifications to like, because I think it's possible to like eliminate at least some aspects of aging.
Yes, there's already a lot of research being done on that, both in the West, also in China. And, I think a very important aspect for me is not just longevity, but health span. We don't want to just live longer. We also want to be healthy longer. And technology can help us achieve that. And for me, a huge part of what is transhumanism for me is improving the quality of life for people for as long as possible. And also the internal changes, how through technology and gene technology, we can also improve our cognitive abilities and empathy. I think we should amplify human empathy.
Well, I'm not quite sure actually about that one, because empathy also might turn dark.
Well, weaponized.
Yeah, it could be weaponized in some
sure. But I think that we've combined with also a cognitive
limiter
spike.
Yeah, I think because the things you're talking about now is stuff that is kind of already present in the Cyberpunk universe. Because there people have they can have inbuilt drug dispensing systems that can basically regulate your emotions, making you more stable, as long as you pay, of course. But, I think this thing about consciousness is a very interesting part of this whole discussions, because here's the thing, I have always, when I watched older movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that movie where he cloned himself, what's the name again?
Yeah, I know which film you're talking about. But
So he's he cloned himself, but what a lot of those old movies got wrong is, well, wait a minute, this is not the same person. He apparently seems like the same person, but the phenomenology. Phenomenology. I hate that word.
It's a simple word, actually.
Phenomenological experience of being that consciousness before cloning is a completely different one from the one that's in the clone.
Yeah,
it's two different people, even though apparently they have the same background, the same memories. It's still not the same person. So, question though is for the upload people then is how are you going to be sure that that particular experience is the same as the experience in the uploaded framework? If you get to the point where you can actually upload it, how do you make sure that you're still you and not just a copy of you that apparently seems because for everyone...
Well, if it is a copy of you, you will not know because you will be dead.
Exactly. The people around you might not know because for they...
Yeah, well, if it can copy your personality, your pattern of speech...
Your memories.
Your memories and your pattern of thought...
They will not notice a difference, but you...
It wouldn't matter,
You will be dead.
But I also have very, very similar thoughts on cryonics.
I also have
cryotechnology, which is basically people freezing themselves or their brains after they're dead, so they could get resurrected years later. And on a fundamental metaphysical level, I think there are three main elements in the universe, and that is matter, energy, and consciousness. And if you look at the energy, right, the thermodynamics, energy doesn't come from nothing, and it cannot turn into nothing. It always turns into something. It's always circulating, takes on new forms. But same with matter, all our matter, our bodies, after we die, those atoms, they will take on a different form. Yeah. Right?
Corpse, as they also called.
Well, no. I mean,
and then
after we decompose those atoms, they will be used for a different purpose. They will have a different form, but they don't disappear. It's all the circulation. And I view consciousness in that same way. So let's say I'm alive right now. Well, I actually am, but let's say. Well, I'm thinking, I'm sort of channeling an aspect or a part of consciousness through my wetware, that's my brain, that sort of becomes a singular unit. But it's not I don't think it's that different from how certain generators and technology can generate levels of energy. And this is something we have actually only mastered in 1800s, that we can accumulate larger amounts of energy in one specific space. And human brain is basically that kind of space that holds a large amount of consciousness, or relatively small compared to the whole universe. And I'm thinking that too circulates in the same way that energy and matter does. And so if your brain dies, and if you freeze your brain, and then if in the future they develop technology where they can refreeze you and put your brain in a new body, and they reactivate that, it's not given that you'll be the same person.
No.
That is won't be a completely new accumulation of consciousness that is starting its own new experience through the senses. It now experiences through that body.
Because you are not only... Because I think I have a different view than you when it comes to the main energies of the world. And I think that's basically matter and energy. I don't think like consciousness is like a third one. I think that's a very human biased way of thinking about things. But anyways,
I would disagree. But
I think that what we describe as consciousness is energy in a vehicle made of matter, and that we are dependent on that vehicle to maintain that consciousness. But
matter is also dependent on energy to maintain itself, but it's a separate thing.
It's all energy in a way. But I think that because what's memories in your brain, it's like the pathways, it's like the electrical current up there. And okay, imagine you just switch off a brain for such a long time, like cryonics or whatever. The energy that was circulating in that brain is just gone, I think. And how can we know that like the pathways that's up in our brain hasn't they've been frozen for a long time, and just like the matter of fact they've been frozen, and maybe basic probably means they'd already been deteriorated and unaltered for always, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know really.
It seems to me, even though we have different metaphysical
understandings,
fundamental understandings of the world, our conclusion
basically the same.
Is the same.
But yeah, but I also been thinking about this aspect also of teleportation as well.
Yeah,
because okay, you are basically what's the word I'm looking? You're basically disassembling a whole being of material, making it to pure energy, and just reassembling it again.
Yeah.
How like basically, how can you sure that like some matter doesn't just get out of place, and that because your consciousness and your like phenomenological experience is not necessarily the same that went into the teleportation machine and the one who went out on the other side.
Have you seen a film called The Fly?
I think you mean like the horror movie?
Yeah, well, I consider it a drama film with horror elements.
Yeah, but I've seen The Fly because, like, if I remember correctly, like the experiment in the movie was teleportation.
Yes.
And basically, fly got into the tube and they basically got mixed together.
Yes, so you technically get a whole new organism that is partially human, partially a fly.
Yeah,
which also actually has the memories of the original subject.
Yeah, which is totally
But-
unrealistic.
If you get into technicalities of it, if it's a completely new life form that got generated through
Teleportation.
this process of teleportation,
Or
then
gene splicing through teleportation.
I think it would be a tabula rasa scenario.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't. It probably wouldn't have much of instincts either. It wouldn't go around killing people. That's for sure. It would be too confused to even think, what the fuck am I supposed to do? It would be basically like a toddler, I think.
I mean, he didn't go killing people right away. He pretty much remained the same. It's just
He got
his
radicalized.
His instincts were insectualized. His instinct.
Are we really having like deep science conversation about like horror movies from the 80s now?
Yeah.
Was it
Well,
80s?
the original, that's a remake. The
Really?
Yeah. The
Fuck.
OG is actually from 1957, 58.
Yeah, shit, really?
Yeah.
I grew up with
Actually,
the
I
one-
think it's one of the few instances in the history of cinema where the remake
Was
is
better.
better than the original
I've actually seen
Frankenstein.
some very old horror movies because I did like movie history at the University of Oslo. And like we watched like Dr. Caligari's Horror Cabinet, and those were like the very first horror movies. And we even saw like a horror movie from the 1800s during that, like whose name is like a, because what people don't know before like Hollywood cemented itself as like the biggest producer of movies, it was basically European countries that was dominating. The French and the Swedes were like huge in movies. Because nobody was talking, you just put text and someone was playing the piano in the background. It was really fun experience because we actually went to Cinemateket here in Oslo and they actually hired someone to play the piano to the movie for us.
Oh, that's
Improvised.
cool. That's
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, for me, watching the evolution of the horror genre is super interesting because, those early they were focusing on like a specific figure.
Yeah.
Frankenstein, Dracula.
Yeah.
I think turning points, and I might be wrong about it because I'm not an expert of cinema history, but I think Freaks was the first horror film that was very subversive in its nature.
Was that one of...
One of us, gobble gobble, gobble gobble.
is that one?
Yeah.
Isn't that... What's the director's name again?
I don't remember.
It wasn't one of Peter Jackson's earlier movies, was it?
No.
Peter Jackson made a lot of
You're
fucked up
talking
horror movies.
about either Bad Taste or Brain Dead. No.
I love those.
Freaks. That's like 1930.
Really?
Something like that. That's an old black
Oh,
and
right.
white film.
Then I haven't seen it.
But it's subversive in the nature that the title is Freaks, and basically it's about disabled people who are part of a circus.
Oh no!
Performance. And they're supposedly freaks, like they're the ones who are supposed to be scary, but it's a subversive film because you see, they're not the monster in that film.
It's regular
the
humans.
people who
Come to watch them.
are basically
Attending.
award escaped me, exploiting.
So like the circus leadership.
Yeah,
basically.
and it's a film that got really misunderstood at the time because the actual message of the film flew over people's heads. So they saw actually those disabled, disfigured people as the actual villains
that's sad.
when this film first came out. It's been going for quite some time. And I'd like to switch the subject because it's something I want us to talk about. We talked about conditional and unconditional love. And last year, you proclaimed yourself non-monogamous and even sort of embraced relationship anarchy.
Yeah.
How would you say it affects your life and your outlook
Not
on
much,
life?
to be honest.
Not much.
No, not much. It's basically just a realization that that all kinds of relationship you go in with people is not really that different from each other. We just frame them differently culturally. That like, I think probably the most important relationship any person has in their life is friendships. It probably is like. Just let's look at it. Okay, when you're a teenager, or if you're a popular teenager, you have maybe this consistent friends of group that stay for you for a long time, sometimes your life even. And then you went through a lot of different romantic relationship that lasts for a much shorter time. But from your like perspective, those often feel more intense because there's much more hormones involved and much more exchange of fluids.
Well, you know, there are all sorts of friendships out there.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, I know, but like people has like culturally framed like romantic relationship as if there were something bigger than friendships.
Yes,
but
the hierarchy.
Yeah, they put like a fake hierarchy that doesn't. The hierarchy of between like friendships and romantic relationship, or you could say the difference between platonic and romantic relationships, are basically the cultural framing we've put through them. I mean, traditionally, there was different actions connected to different kinds of relationship. But if you see the modern times, there are friends with benefits out there. There's something called fuck buddies. Yeah. People are just friends, and sometimes they fuck, and that's it.
But a lot of the times they're not really friends, though. They just call it friends with benefits, but there's not actual friendship.
It's basically a fuck buddy.
Yeah.
Just to put it simply like that.
Yeah.
But I also know friend gangs who basically have a more loosey-goosey type of relationship to these kind of things. But I also notice a lot of people who consider themselves polyamorous are not necessarily good at it.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. Actually, before I'll say something about that, just something I wanted to add regarding the thing you said about friendship and relationships. I can, with all honesty, say that I love you more than any person I have been romantically involved with throughout the years. I think you're probably the only person who don't have any blood relationship with. It's not my family who I can say I probably love.
Yeah, that's I will take that. I also feel like you're probably the person in my life I was the closest relationship with outside of family. And I love you too, buddy.
Oh, thank you.
Pew! Fist bump of love.
That's a platonic fisting.
Yeah, but anything. It's like I've noticed, like, because people, I think people need to realize how important their friendships are, because friendship in general lasts much more longer than your romantic relationships. I also have a tendency, I share much more with friends and I share with romantic partners. There's stuff I tell you as a friend that I would never tell a romantic partner, because I know I can be much more open with you than, well, most people. And I think that isn't that a sign of like a higher degrees of trust?
No, I agree. I agree
because
with that. I think there's something deeply wrong with this whole view. Actually, I made a video on relationship anarchy this summer, but I have a huge issue with how society tells you your partner should be the most important person in your life. And a lot of the time, those things are also expected from your boyfriend, your girlfriend, husband, wife, where they should play the most important role in your life.
I don't think it's healthy.
And then they guilt shame you if you don't, if you have other priorities, if you love other people. But the thing is, I don't think the issue is with monogamy. I think the issue is with social norms. And a lot of those social norms also are transferred to polyamory if you don't actually work through that. Because sure, you break up with monogamy, but you adopt a lot of
the same things,
those same norms.
I've noticed it also.
And that's why I prefer relationship anarchy instead of just regular polyamory.
You just need to be careful you don't devolve into libertarianism, because that's toxic.
I care to elaborate for the viewers.
Because I think when you are like a relationship anarchist, you at least understand that you are dealing with other people, and you have to respect their emotions, and you have to make them clear of this is how you live your life. This is the relationships you are with other people. Because here's the thing: if you are, for example, juggling multiple different partners, all of the partners need to know that. Because if you don't respect the other person, okay, I'm, for example, if you say something, a phrase like, "Oh, I'm polyamorous, but my partner isn't." Well, dude, if you're a polyamorist and you live in a relationship with other people, and you don't tell the other person this, that's just like, that's not good.
No, I agree on that.
And that's basically relationship libertarianism in a nutshell. You basically just do whatever you like. Don't think about other people. Don't tell other people who you choose with. And
I think it's a shitty thing if you get into a relationship and you don't talk about those expectations towards
just
monogamy or polyamory. Like you actually discuss that because you also want to care about how that other person feels, and if it's not there, if it's not something they're on board with, I think it's better to have that conversation and actually not go there instead of ruin
I think
it later.
if the other person, if you are like, consider yourself a polyamorist or relationship anarchist or whatever, and if you're both, if you're okay with it but the other person accept it but are kind of not okay with it, it's actually better to break up with them. And because here's clear, people have different needs.
Yeah.
Some people has a need for monogamy because that feels safer. It's the type of relationship they prefer. So I think it's
or sometimes it's just inability to handle more than one person.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's kind of cruel towards that person.
Sure.
To take up their time but not able to give them that commitment that they need. Because if you're going to be polyamorous, you need to do with other people who clearly are polyamorous themselves or have accepted that reality that there's more people, there are more people than you and me in this boat, and you're sharing me with other people, and you need to be okay with that. And like I said earlier, like one of the appeals to polyamory for me or relationship anarchy is like one person doesn't need to be everything to the other person. You can be some things.
It's a very unhealthy expectation. Actually, also unrealistic because, okay, there's supposed to be good and bad. There's supposed to be a good parent to the child. They're also supposed to be a good conversationalist with you. Oh, yeah, you also should cooperate on things like economy, houseworks, and that person should also take care of your emotional needs. And it's like that's a lot of weight on one person.
And while I know there are some people who are able to balance a lot of stuff, I also have encountered very unhealthy relationships where there's these expectations but not the ability to fulfill them at all. Not even like the slightest. Not even one thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And
that
sometimes destructive.
Sometimes I think that platonic partners are actually better at cooperating and creating a good home life than romantic or sexual partners. And in that case, I think it's great if they have someone else to meet those needs, but come home to something stable.
Yeah, like a group of friends that you live with.
Yeah. For instance.
Yeah.
But in the article you wrote on this subject last year that I read, you said that while you value relationship anarchism, you don't think that the standard form of anarchy would work.
I think like anarchy as a political ideology is a bit different than managing different relationships, I think.
In what sense?
It's basically more. It's basically the problem with the thing is like it's very difficult to maintain like a completely anarchistic society, a completely flat society, unless you have something mechanisms in between that makes it possible.
Okay. In a way, well, yes. I think the smaller any relationship is, the easier it is to
But when you have
handle
entire
for it to
society, it
function.
might and since people are not alike, we have narcissists, we have egomaniacs
Yeah.
that want to cement power.
Yeah.
And that would be true even in like an anarchistic society.
Yes, and I agree on that, and I think there is a need to have systems in place that prevent people from gaining positions of power. And for me, one of the major problems we have had throughout the history since monarchy, lost its presence at the top of societal hierarchy, where the government, the state, sort of has that role. What we actually failed to do that is to remove or separate responsibility from power. So at the same time, what we're doing is that the people to whom we're giving positions of responsibility, we're also giving them positions of power. I think those two should be fundamentally different things, and we shouldn't mix them together. I all for abolition of power, but I'm all in support for positions of voluntary responsibility that doesn't come from any benefits or any power. And when I think of anarchism, it's really not that different from relationship anarchism, because they're both based in the same
Idea.
fundamental idea of opposing hierarchies. And I'm not much of a gatekeeper when it comes to anarchism, so people who think of themselves as relationship anarchists, I consider them like part of the anarchist umbrella.
All right.
Like some anarchists don't, but I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm very, very open to. So anyone who opposes any kind of hierarchy, I include them in that
I think,
umbrella.
I think I like the idea of anarchism if you could get it to work. I think that would be very healthy. But
The challenge is
definitely people.
Yeah, no, for sure. My approach towards anarchism is also a bit more radical in a way.
Idealistic, maybe?
No, I would say radical in terms of the means I would use to achieve that, and that is to genetically modify human to make them work together better, and to eliminate certain unwanted human characteristics like narcissism that you mentioned, like
probably I think
for violence.
I think
like
to be honest, I think probably narcissism is probably the most dangerous one of the dark trifecta, to be honest. Like we talk about sociopaths and psychopaths, but
well, or psychopaths, they have a use of sorts, because in a very difficult situation when you have to make moral decisions, and some people, their empathy might make them hold back to make a decision where you unfortunately have to sacrifice some lives to
are we
save
talking
them.
about psychopaths or sociopaths now?
Psychopaths.
Yeah.
We're talking lack of empathy, basically. But so yes, I'm in support of genetically modifying an anarchist society, basically, because I think it's the only way it would work, and I think we also need an anarchist society in the future, so we don't end up because the society is going to become transhumanist, whether people like it or not. It's probably going to go in that direction unless everything fucks up and we go back to Middle Ages, which is also
much looks like we're gonna fuck up.
possibility. But if that doesn't happen and we move towards a transhumanist society without anarchism, we're going to end up in a type of society where corporations,
like Cyberpunk.
basically become a totalitarian force, and it will have very negative impact on how that technology is used.
Oh yeah, of course.
And we want to avoid that. That's why I think anarchism will become a necessity. At the same time, I also think that transhumanism is a necessity for anarchism to work. So I think capitalism as it is right now, there are people who want to abolish it like right now, completely, here and now. I'm thinking there's some positive aspect to it because it drives a technological development. And I'm like, let's squeeze those juices while we can and use it to our advantage.
At the same
It's
at the same time, capitalism is like a worm eating its own tail. Because
that's a very Marxist way of thinking.
Because I have some Marxist thoughts sometimes, but my idea is we have a finite amount of resources, and this idea of forever growing economy is it's very destructive.
I recently I've been entertaining an idea of what might actually happen in the future. I know it sounds crazy, but don't take it completely seriously.
Okay,
but maybe there's something to it. I don't know. AI generated currency. Well, basically, kind of like if you're a lazy student and you want ChatGPT to generate your assignment for you, and you ask GPT to do that. Imagine doing something like that, but just, hey, generate $10,000 for me.
Like a 3D printer or something?
Yeah.
You know what I've been
thinking? It's like that's the actual currency in that type of hypothetical world. And considering that, we are already seeing a move towards digital currency, Bitcoin, stuff like that. It sounds wild, but if that actually happened in the future, I wouldn't be shocked if we could artificially generate currency.
I think that the problem about that is you're just gonna make any type of valuta collapse.
Sure,
because it would just lead to inflation.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you see in America right now.
And a thing about inflation, technically with most empires,
inflation is the reason.
Inflation very often plays a major role.
It's definitely not fellatio.
Definitely not fellatio. It's Spanish Empire.
Yeah.
Inflation.
The Roman Empire. Inflation.
Yeah, in both cases there are many
steps between.
Yeah, but a lot of people
if you look at the Roman Empire, they weren't really able to maintain the same type of military that they used to. Their soldiers didn't become worse than they were in the early Republic area with the Tostitos and everything. The limites and comites was both good soldiers, but the economy collapsed, so they couldn't really maintain it.
Yeah, it is not just economy; it's corruption too. From within
lead
the
pipes,
state. And a lot of people often say that the Roman Empire collapsed because of a loss of values and morals, decadence, and a lot of the times these days they're pointing out to liberals. But if you think about it through most of empires, it's in those liberal days when they lived
highest
peak, as the Greek society, a perfect example of that, but with Roman Empire. And a lot of people think that because they take something from, it's a book Edward Gibbs wrote in 1700s about the fall of the Roman Empire. And most people haven't read it, and they just know like the surface level stuff. Like the decadence, decadence, loss of morals. But what it actually means, corruption within the state, corruption and inflation. And what we're seeing with America right now is corruption and inflation
and mismanagement in general.
Yeah, and I think it's not within the realm of impossibility that we are going to see a fall of an empire of sorts within our lifetime.
Yeah, and it is probably going to be replaced by China.
Yeah, no,
it's the reality thing.
No, could be Russia.
No, it's definitely not Russia.
I mean, I would lean more towards China as well, but
I mean, like the problem with Russia, it has the same problem that America has. It's being run into the ground by incompetence.
Sure,
because they have made a system where only loyalty is rewarded over competence, and when a system starts rewarding loyalty over competence, it's gonna go to hell. So sure, of course, like in China, you have how should I put it? Like loyalty to the party and stuff like that. But if you're corrupt, if you use the state's money for your own purposes, no matter how high in the system you are, you're gonna be punished hard. Like for example, there was like the former minister, I don't remember what, that's recently got like he got a death sentence for abusing public money. And because like you could say whatever you want about China, but they punish corruption hard, and they value competence highly. So even though they have that loyalty bit, they consider, from what I can't say this for like sure, but my impression is that you are a loyal subject if you show competence and use it for the benefit of the state. But if you look at America, it doesn't matter if you're incompetent as long as you're loyal. Just look at like RFK Jr., for example.
That's a good example.
Like his brain got literally eaten by worms, and like his wife child, no, only a small bit of his brain got eaten, promise. But what you see in America is like just loyalty without the competence bit. Because that's basically the difference between a successful empire and an empire that will crumble. Pure loyalty to the movement and like accepting incompetence in whatever forms will destroy your country. And you basically saw the same thing happen to the Roman Empire as well. There was like this loyalty to the emperors. There was no during the Roman Empire, shit stagnated, honestly, and they weren't really able to really maintain for much longer time. Like, of course, if we be talking about the Roman Empire, like it fell during those times, but it didn't, honestly, because like the Roman Empire lasted until like the 1400s or something.
Correct.
All the way because the Roman Empire lived through the Byzantine Empire for the longest time, but the Western Empire fell and became all those countries we know today as Spain, France, Italy, even Romania, believe it or not, which was at that in the Roman time known as Dacia. But the thing is, like, It's corruption and mismanagement and unwavering confidence in your thinking, because, well, narcissism has a tendency to do that. Yeah. So America is like in big trouble. And if you look at Russia, they have the same problem as America. Lots of loyalty, but lots of incompetence. No critical voices means less well thought through decision making. And that's also why in most cases democracies manage better than a lot of the dictatorships. Because they're like, if it's at least a functioning democracy, competence is more important than pure loyalty. Because people think that loyalty somehow is like a great quality to have no matter what.
Oh, I agree on that 100%.
Because
we are, sort of
but
brainwashed into thinking that loyalty is a good thing. But
but it's not always.
No, and I've not, and it's whether it's loyalty to the leader, loyalty to the group, it's really an enemy of individualism and ability to think for yourself. And sometimes you have to go against your group and your people when you're seeing a
and
rise
sometimes
of
to their benefit.
Corruption.
Because it's also, here's the thing, it's also a benefit to groups to have someone says like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't good for us. This is going to ruin us.
Yeah, but people are very tribalistic.
Yeah, they need to stop that. Because, but loyalty is also the enemy of all knowledge.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining me. I was looking forward to do it for a very, very long time. And I think the reason why this made for a really, really good episode is because we're in this strange position where, our ideological alignment is not the same. There are many things we disagree on, but I think there's also a lot of overlap, which allows for interesting conversations, where we're not antagonistic towards each other, but we
have very strong
but we
opinions.
also have our own, viewpoints.
Yeah.
In a way, that was an Assassin's Creed reference, by the way. Well, so thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And let's go eat a steak.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm cooked.
Same.
So hungry.
I want to pee. I want to pee so much right
Me too.
now. Oh yeah, I want to pee.
Is that how the episode ends?
Deal with the camera turning off all the time. Where the hell is my hoodie? I had it with me. I took it off.
Behind the here, but down there?
Step out, but I'm so confused. Wait, I took it off here.
Is it under here, perhaps?
No, I checked there. It's not.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
That's the one?
Yeah.
You just need to look better.
I'm
Come
blind.
on.